thank you everyone for joining us. We have Nicole Moore from Washington University and Jennifer Russel from Bryn Mawr. And like I said, both are on the East Coast, so it is early for them, but not too early. We have a whole series of webinars that is going on for the next week, and I have that schedule up there for you. These are our guests today. And I'll just tell you a little bit about the Red Pen. We are an education consulting company that's been operating out of Mumbai for the last 9 years and supporting students through the undergraduate application process, as well as postgraduate and MBA, and also boarding schools and other academic, choices and decisions that people have to make. So my partner Namita Mehta, the president of the Red Pen, is here. I'm Kim Dixit, the CEO and co-founder, and we are, trying to bring to you these admissions officers from around the world who normally would come and visit Mumbai and come to schools and hold information sessions and touch base, very personally with students. So we hope that this is an opportunity for students to kind of connect in whatever way we can. So right here are their email addresses. Please note them down in case you have questions later. You can email them directly. I'm going to show this slide at the end of the presentation again if you have further questions. The way we're going to do this is all the attendees, you should have a Q&A box in your Zoom window, and you can post questions in there. And if your question will be answered once we sort of repeat it back to them, you won't be answered. They won't see the question and answer real time. So do be a little bit patient and wait for your question to be answered after the presentation. But you can post the questions anytime. Okay, so I think that's it. And with that, I will let Jennifer and Nicole, let you guys take over the screen and start telling us about your universities.
All right, well, thank you so much, Kim and Namita. We're really happy to be here.
Also, Nicole, do you want to do the quick intro?
If you would like me to.
Let's see. Do we have our...
Can you see the slides?
Yes, we can see the slides.
All right.
Yeah. Great.
All right. Perfect.
Great.
So just the liberal arts part of things, is that what you were saying, Jen? Sorry.
Yeah, I guess, and maybe just for Red Pen, my guess is that your audience is pretty familiar with liberal arts, or should we do a quick primer?
I think it always helps to do a quick primer. And
sure.
Not necessarily in this bit, but in throughout, if you feel like, or you find there are ways that your colleges are differentiated from some other liberal arts colleges, I think that would really help, because we have heard from quite a few liberal arts colleges. So students, if they didn't have a sense, they are now getting a sense, but I think it's really still good for them to understand they're still not all the same, So that's one
perfect. Yep.
Bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we can kind of dive right in.
Yeah. All right. Oh, actually, I think our liberal arts slide got pushed.
Okay. Then
that's
okay.
Okay.
Then we're going to dive right in.
Yeah.
All right. So I think I'm started. I think we're doing a alphabetical order here.
All right. Do you want to just go ahead and start with Bryn Mawr, Jen?
Yeah. Is that okay?
Yep. Go for it. All
right. So there is a lovely slide of Bryn Mawr, which looks a little elongated, but my name is Jennifer Russel, and I'm representing Bryn Mawr College. And we are just outside the city of Philadelphia. Next slide. And here's just a little bit of facts and figures about us. We are a small college. We've got about 1,300 students coming from all over the world. We have lots of students from all over. About 22% of our students come from overseas. So that's a lot, and we're really proud of that. So that is one distinguishing feature, actually, of Bryn Mawr. So that's in part why we have a lot of our students still on campus, is because we want to take care of those that are coming from very far away. Next slide. All right. Looks like we have some formatting issues. I'm sorry about that, but you can still see. So our location right outside of the city of Philadelphia. So Philadelphia is right in between Washington, D.C. and New York. You may be familiar with that. And so we're kind of right on the East Coast, very close to Philadelphia, but definitely not in Philadelphia. Really close access to the city by train, but we're in a beautiful suburban campus location. The other thing that I'll point out on this map and the blue bus that's down in the corner there is our connection with several other colleges in the immediate area. So Haverford College, Swarthmore College, and the University of Pennsylvania are all part of our consortium. And what's important about that, I'll mention it a little bit later, is that students from any of those colleges can take classes on our campus and vice versa. And a lot of students participate in that, so it's important to know. Next slide. So another important thing to know about us is that we are a liberal arts and sciences college for women, which is oftentimes, as you see here, not on students' radar. When you talk to many of our current students, they'll tell you that they really weren't looking for a women's college. They're maybe not sure how they got there. But once they are there, and when you talk to our alums, they'll tell you almost categorically that the fact that we're a women's college is one of the best things about us. So I can weave some of that into the sort of the presentation, but it's been an interesting sort of transformation among students from where you are, students, to where our current students and graduates are. Next slide. So a couple kind of snapshots of some of our students and some of the things that they're doing. Major-wise, you don't need to know what you want to study when you come to campus. All of our students are undeclared when they arrive. They don't choose their major until the second year, and that's one of the great advantages of liberal arts and sciences. A couple highlights here. So Haley, I think number 4 there, is one of our super STEM students. About a third of our students major in math or science, which is actually pretty phenomenal. And she's double major in math and chemistry, has done a lot of research on campus. And when she graduated just as of last year, she ended up getting a Fulbright in Germany. So that she's doing continuing with research, and that is typical of a lot of our students interested in STEM. Joy, number 5 there, took a very different path. She was always interested in business. And we don't have a business major, but I think another fantastic thing about liberal arts and sciences is that you can do so many things with it, and she definitely pursued business. She graduated also last year and is working for BlackRock in New York City, a financial consulting firm, and she really got on that pathway through some internships that she did while she was at Bryn Mawr. And a lot of our students do participate in that as well. Next slide. And this is a little bit of a snapshot of what is not on campus and what our students do sort of out there in the world experientially. In some ways, Bryn Mawr is a very traditional, old college. But in other ways, I think we're pretty unconventional and very experiential in learning. So one thing that I'll highlight here on this slide is a program that we have called 360 Degrees. And what this is during one of your semesters, if you choose to participate, you can take 3 classes as a cluster of classes with the same group of students. It is so 3 different disciplines, all sort of team taught by faculty in different disciplines, but it's all focused around a particular theme or topic, and there's always an experiential learning component to it. So I think the one on the bottom left there, where the green that says study abroad programs, I think that picture is actually from one of the 360s that was focused on environmental studies. And the 3 classes, one was a geology class, one was, I think, an environmental studies class, and maybe the other was economics. I think those are the 3 classes. But anyway, I think that picture actually is the students in Belize. So that was their experiential learning part for that. And then the picture with the 28%, that's another 360 that actually went to Japan and looked at traditional meditation practices. So some pretty interesting things, not something that you have to participate in, but certainly a pretty interesting program and available. And sometimes what students do, opting for, if they don't want to study abroad for a whole semester. So just some different and kind of fun options. Next slide. Next slide. Uh-oh, can we get our next, there we are, okay. So this, oh, back up one. So the 4 square picture, that one before, there we go, is a little bit of a snapshot of campus. You know, I think one of the most important, but maybe hardest things for students is to get a sense of what the campus vibe is like. You know, who are the students? What does it really feel to be like that when you're there? And Bryn Mawr, you know, I think certainly as a women's college has a tremendous sense of community. Just cannot emphasize that enough. We have a lot of traditions that happen during the course of the year. Some are silly, some are serious, some are secret, but they are things that alums will talk about literally for the rest of their lives. The top left corner there, we have a great hall, and we have a Harry Potter themed dinner that happens every 4 years. It rotates so that we make sure that all students can participate in that. So that's certainly a fun tradition. And I think, you know, probably if you look really closely in that picture, you maybe even see some men in that picture, because as much as Bryn Mawr is not really about the absence of men, but rather the presence of women. So we do have men on our campus. They're coming from Haverford College, Swarthmore College, probably not from Penn. Penn usually, the exchange is usually our students going there. But with Haverford, there are hundreds of students on our campus every day, and the reverse. Our students take classes at Haverford. It's almost everybody does it. So it's very well utilized, not something that we just put in the brochure, but nobody does it. It really is something that students access as a fantastic resource, both for academic things as well as social things as well. Next slide. All right, so what do our students do after they graduate and have this fantastic experience? So the statistic up there, I got some clarification from our statisticians on campus, and 97% of our students are either in graduate school, employed, or in a formal program 1 year after graduation. So that is pretty remarkable. The box at the bottom gives you a little bit of an idea, sampling of what our students do. And I will note, for example, in the bottom middle there, the employment, the top 5 industry fields where our students are going. So you can see the first one is business. So as I mentioned before, we don't have a business major, but that is one of the top employers of our students. So that is the beauty of liberal arts and sciences in terms of the breadth and opportunities that you have there. So many of our students go on to graduate school, maybe not right after graduation, but certainly within a few years after undergraduate. So that'll just give you a little bit of a sense of where our students are headed. And next slide. And just a couple of my favorite quotes there, and especially the one at the bottom, that's from a student that I knew well, and she said, Bryn Mawr is the place where you can come as you are and grow into whatever you want to be. And I think that says a lot. Our students really feel like this is a really good fit for them personally and academically, and they can't imagine being anywhere else. So lots more to talk about, but that's kind of a quick overview of Bryn Mawr. I'll turn it over to my colleague.
All right, thank you, Jen.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we found our liberal arts slide, but that's okay. Why don't we go ahead and skip over this for a second? I'll talk about Washington and Lee since Jen was gracious enough to give us a quick overview of Bryn Mawr. I'll just go ahead and skip right to Washington and Lee for right now. So Washington and Lee University is a liberal arts institution. We are actually the 9th oldest university in the US. We were actually established in 1749. As Kim mentioned, we are located on the East Coast. We're located in the state of Virginia. We like to think of ourselves as in the ideal location. Like many liberal arts and sciences institutions, we are a smaller institution. We have around 1,850 students. We're located around 3 hours away by car or bus from Washington, D.C. You know, we are surrounded by the beautiful mountains in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. We have, you know, it's a beautiful 4 seasons around us. You know, we have a beautiful warm spring, very hot summer, mild winter, and then a cool spring and fall. So we like to think of ourselves as the ideal location. We're rural, but not remote. We are located in a small town called Lexington, Virginia. It is about 7,000 people, so it's a very small town. But we like to think of ourselves as, you know, comfortable and inspiring, a very safe location for students to enjoy their liberal arts and sciences environment. And we do really want it to be your home away from home while you are studying in the United States. You know, there's a few differences when we're talking about liberal arts and sciences. And, you know, one thing that I want to point out, you know, and I think Jen already kind of talked to this aspect specifically, is that, you know, we do specifically say liberal arts and sciences. So just because you're studying a liberal arts institution does not mean that you do not have sciences there. But more importantly, you know, we want your home away from home to be your community of scholars. And a key defining aspect of liberal arts environment is the community that surrounds you, the supportive nature of your faculty members, the many activities that you'll have available to do. We have over 150 different clubs and student organizations, things for students to get involved with, everything from academic organizations, also, you know, such as like Model United Nations, Math Club, Chess Club, things like that. But you also have social organizations. We have Greek Life. We have, you know, Young Republicans, Young Democrats. You can get involved in activist groups such as like Amnesty International. You can get involved in community service projects, and we highly encourage students to do so. We have a very old honor system on campus. It's actually one of probably the favored traditions on our campus. And so it's much more than just not lying, cheating, or stealing as part of the campus community. It's more about how you hold yourself to a higher standard and really opting in a mature way into treating each others as you would like to be treated. And the beautiful thing is about WNL system is that it's completely student run. So they have their own honor councils, their own honor systems. It's not somebody telling them what to do. It's them holding themselves to a higher standard. And the really cool part is it gives students a lot of freedom. Many times that they have freedom to schedule their own exams or take them when they need to take them if they're not prepared, and to really make sure that they're deeply learning in the process. So they would just work with their professor, and they might go to that professor and say, hey, I have 4 exams that day. Is there any way that I can potentially schedule your exam for the next day? I promise that there will, you know, that I will do everything that I'm expected to do. And the beautiful part of our honor system is that students have that trust. But we do expect a high ability or a high responsibility level from our students as well. So it's a really great community. And actually, one thing I should mention, we have another aspect of our tradition, which is the speaking tradition on campus, where, you know, once again, it's not codified. It's not a sense that students are told what to do, but it's about saying hi to people on campus. It's about getting to know those students and really enjoying each other's company. And so, you know, if you're walking across campus, instead of looking down at your phone or not paying attention, students have their eyes up. They say hi. They get to know everybody. And so it's a very warm and welcoming and a trusting community on our campus, which we're very, very proud. Some important information to kind of come across from our campus. As I mentioned, we have about 1,850 undergraduate students. We do have a small law school of about 350 students, but you know, they're not teaching. All of our courses are taught by professors, 100%. You can see that we're very even split. We admit both men and women, but we're about 50-50 split there. We have an average class size of 15, but you can see our student to faculty ratio is 8-to-1. And we have very small class sizes in general. It's a very important aspect of our education. And you'll see that students actually come from over 50 countries around the world and from nearly every single state in the US, but only 15% of our students actually come from the state of Virginia. And we do have about 5.5% international students, but that's all split up amongst 52 countries. So it's a very diverse group of international students, not just coming from any one country. Kind of diving into what makes Washington & Lee unique as a liberal arts and sciences institution. You know, as an institution, you know, very similar to many other liberal arts institutions that you would know, when you arrive, you don't have to choose what major you wish to study immediately. You can try things, you can, you know, you'll take some courses that will help you dive into areas that you're interested in. We'll also have courses that will expand your knowledge range to help you find what really fits for you. But one of the really key unique things that makes us completely different from other small liberal arts institutions is that we have a AACSB accredited School of Business, the Williams School for Commerce, Economics, and Politics. We also have a full undergraduate engineering program on campus, 4 years on our campus. You don't have to worry about transferring anywhere after 2 years or something like that. And we also have one of the oldest undergraduate journalism programs in the US. You know, it actually dates back to the 1800s within the US. So it's a very old program. They have great connections with very strong newspapers across the United States. So it's a very unique to see that blend. I mean, you'll see institutions that have similar programs, but they're usually much larger universities. They're not small liberal arts institutions. And the really great thing is that you don't choose a major when you apply. So you can apply, you could take both engineering and business if you wanted to. You could take politics and arts. You could do geology and engineering. You could do art and engineering, which is a really cool option for students to really kind of dive in to the different areas that they're interested in and not having to limit themselves to just one area. Also, I'll point out that experiential learning is a very important piece of what we do. To that end, students can actually apply for grants up to $3,600 to help offset the cost of doing their research, either in the summer or during the academic year. And we actually provide nearly 500 funded research opportunities for our students, and students can even do that as early as the end of their first year, both on campus or away from campus. So there's a lot of opportunities on our campus to make sure that you are gaining hands-on learning experience. Actually, as an example, our Williams Investment Society, our students actually get to manage $10 million of the university's endowment as essentially a club project to get hands-on learning experience. Also, I want to make sure to point out that, you know, this is a great environment for students, you know, to really gain a lot of experience prior to graduation, but we want to make sure that you are going to be successful upon graduation. Our network of alumni is vast all across the world, and our students take full advantage of that. We have an online program called Handshake that helps connect current students with W&L graduates and others who are able to help them with an internship or a first job. We also have kind of a unique career counseling structure on our campus. So we have probably about 5, 6, 7 different professionals in our office who've had 10 to 15 years experience in the industries. You know, whether that's financial, whether that's the arts, whether it's sciences, they have professionals in each of those different areas. And then, so they help students and help connect them to various industries. But then we also have a network of senior students who actually help counsel students one-on-one with, how do I write a resume? How do I dress for that first internship opportunity? How do I talk to my professor about getting a research opportunity? What might be the best option for me if I want to study abroad? What kind of experience could I get with that? And so they really help students, and then they prep them to talking with the career professionals within our office as well. And then we have about 6 different trips each year for career exploration. So they go out to Silicon Valley in California. They go up to New York to check out Wall Street. They also, they take advantage of a number of programs that we have set up. We have a little bit of different course structure on our campus. You have 2 semesters, and then you have a 4-week spring term where you just focus on one class. And so we have 2 really unique programs there. One is a Washington term for students to do an internship in Washington, D.C., whether that's in politics, international relations, or maybe, a Smithsonian internship, something like that. But we also have a clinical rotation program for students who want to study like biological sciences, science research, pre-med, that type of thing. And they can actually do an internship there in Richmond, Virginia, which is only about a 2-hour car drive. So it's pretty convenient for students there. But our students are very successful. They go both to industry and to graduate school. So they're very successful out there, and we want to make sure that students are successful when it comes to that. So we talked about spring term. I also point out one other very unique program that we have on campus, which is the Shepherd Poverty Program, which I think is very interesting, because one of the important pieces of that is giving back. And that's probably one of the key aspects that we're looking for in students. We're looking for leaders. We're looking for students who are, strong academically. And we can talk about those types of things later with the admissions portion. But we can also, one of the things that we're usually looking for is students who want to give back to their communities. And so the Shepherd Poverty Program is actually an interdisciplinary program, and it's our most popular interdisciplinary program. And so many students are doing some really cool things to give back to the world and to their communities. But overall, just remember that, we're a little bit different, but we're also pretty similar to a lot of other liberal arts and sciences institutions. So that's W&L. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicole and Jennifer. That was like really informative about both, perfect amount of information about both of the colleges. So we have some questions coming in, but I am going to, one second, I'm just gonna share my screen. There we go. And go on to some of the questions that we're getting. Some of the questions we had prepared, and then talk about some of the ones that are coming across. Okay, so the first question I have is the first thing that is on everybody's mind who is applying now for fall of 2021. So this year, with all of the kind of changes that are happening with the SAT, ACT, the students' abilities or inabilities to take up new or extended extracurricular activities and projects, as well as just the whole world being in a different place right now. How are you guys going to evaluate applications this year differently, if at all? And particularly would like it if you speak about whether the interview will become more important if your college interviews at all, and how you're going to look at that same or differently, and then also whether something like demonstrated interest would carry more weight, less weight, same weight, or how do you look at those things, all those elements? I'll let you answer first, Nicole, and then Jennifer can answer.
Sure. So, I think one of the biggest things to always think about is whenever you're looking at a university, think about how they look at applications. Do they review applications holistically? And that is definitely one of the defining characteristics of a small liberal arts institution, is that we have the staff available and we have the time to be able to review every application kind of in itself. And so I think that is one of the key aspects. But you're right, like this is such an unprecedented time in, you know, the world's history. You know, we haven't seen this type of, you know, issue for about 100 years now at this point, like as a widespread issue. And so obviously there's very important things that are happening all around. But at Washington and Lee specifically, I think one of the biggest updates that I'm really happy, this is the very first place that I get to share this information, is that for the upcoming year, we are actually going to be test optional for the class of 2025. This was a big change and it's only for a 1-year process right now. But it's a really great option for students who are having difficulties getting to a test center during this unprecedented time to be able to opt to be test optional with the ACT or the SAT. So that being said, you know, I think it's always big questions of like, well, what does that mean? And what will that mean for the rest of the application material? And, you know, when students will ask, you know, students and parents will ask me like, well, what does that mean for the essay or for a recommendation or something like that? And it's like, will it count more? Well, I guess, you know, de facto, if you subtract one thing, I guess technically the rest of the things count more. But I think in the long run of things, you know, a holistic admissions approach means that everything is balanced in that process. And so no one piece of the application matters more than any other. And we actually in the past have not offered many interviews abroad because we've usually relied on alumni. So we had to kind of wait to see where alumni were taking hold. This year, we're also looking at having online interviews. So that's actually an opportunity for international students to potentially get an interview when maybe they weren't able to in the past. So we've actually probably have more opportunities for international students to take advantage of the opportunities on campus. So, and I don't think that demonstrated interest or something like that's going to take an outsized importance in our program. But I do think that, you know, in any given year, if you're an interested student, you should let us know because we want to know who's interested in us as much as we want to know who we're interested in them. So I think there's always a bit of a matching process within the admissions process in general. You know, that doesn't necessarily mean that the student who's most interested gets admitted, but yeah. I think that, you know, it's always good to let a university know if we're your top choice.
Great, and I'm gonna let Jennifer answer now. And I but I just wanted to ask you, if a student, you were just talking about interviews, if a student sends you a video of themselves, or they do an initial interview, or they just send you some way, you know, so that you can see the real them walking, talking, is that something to look at? Are you interested in that or not so much?
Well, I mean, we always have the option for students to upload portfolio materials within the application process. You know, students, you know, they choose what to send there sometimes. For some students, it's poetry. For some students, it's art. For some student, it's a documentary film that they created. Others, it's, you know, a musical piece kind of thing. And I think, you know, that kind of could be an option, you know, especially if a student has something specifically that they need to say, that could be an option for them. But I wouldn't really go out of, you know, I think as admissions professionals, you know, we are not, you know, you don't want to overload an admissions professional because I think sometimes you can go the opposite direction and have overwhelming, you know, kind of touches with an admissions counselor. And when you have to kind of tread that fine line. It's good to be engaged with them, but you can also go too far and then you're getting bad attention rather than good attention.
Great.
And so I don't think that we have it kind of set up in that place. I mean, it's fine to reach out to see if there's a way that you can set up a chat with an admissions counselor, or, you know, we do events like this, or we're going to, you know, we have online sessions that are called General Insights. You can hear from current W&L students about their experiences on our campus. And so join one of those and, you know, make sure that we know that you attended. And those types of things are probably more valuable than just trying to keep reaching out to an admissions counselor and get bad attention.
Okay, great. Thank you. Jennifer, would you like to add to how Bryn Mawr might be looking at things similar or differently this year?
Yeah. You know, Nicole said it well. I mean, I think as a holistic schools that are looking at applications holistically, we will continue to do that. So I think that I don't see that changing. You were talking about interviews, and we do offer interviews via Skype, via alums, or in person. And I was just going to highlight one thing in terms of submitting extra materials. You had asked about that. And one of maybe this is a personal thing maybe, but I really love it when I'm doing an interview on Skype with a student, and, maybe she's at home or and she'll pick up her computer and she'll go over and show me like this painting that she did. Or, at this point, I guess you can screen share all sorts of things as well. But that's just like a really personal moment that I really appreciate. And I think the extra information sometimes is even better there than an additional material that might be submitted as part of the application. So that's in part maybe a personal preference.
Okay.
But it's just, yeah.
That makes sense. So basically you're saying that most of what Jennifer sort of explained about the process applies to you, and that there's this sort of extra personalized element that you enjoy as well. I did want to say that this year, for the first time, not the first time, but in a very kind of good example, a student kept asking me if she should send some videos of herself dancing or something like that. And I was like, you can, but you don't have to. And sometimes they don't like it. And it was kind of like this back and forth. And then finally, after she submitted her application, the college actually reached out to her and said, you mentioned that you've danced a lot. Can you send us videos? And I was like, great. So it was perfect that, they wanted, I'm glad that she only sent it once they asked for it, because I think that, and other colleges didn't ask for it. So, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so moving on, I think you both spoke a lot about your campuses, what they offer, and what, I think all the opportunities that a student can sort of avail of on both campuses. But if you had to describe, what is the perfect kind of student I'll let you start, Jennifer. What is the perfect Bryn Mawr student and that you really see thrive on campus?
Yeah. One thread that we see sort of in common with really all of our students is a real intellectual curiosity, a real passion for something. It could be what they're studying, but it could be an extracurricular activity or an issue or anything like that. But we're the kind of place where it's okay to be a smart girl. And, sometimes in high school, that's not, quote unquote, the cool thing. Or you're looking around for the other smart girls. Where are they? Well, they are all on our campus. So you are surrounded by, students that really want to be in class, who really, have that intellectual curiosity. So I think that's a really important thread that goes through all of our students. I think in terms of sort of personalities, it's a very wide range. We have some students that, are real leaders and really out there in their high schools and continue to do that at Bryn Mawr. We have some students who learn to use their voice at Bryn Mawr in a place, and it's the kind of place that you can really do that. That you can really feel supported and encouraged by the community and by each other. So those are a couple things I think that I would highlight about students that do well.
I would like to just add this question that's come from one of the audience. It's actually a 3-part question for Bryn Mawr specifically. And when you said, intellectually curious and smart, it made me think I should ask this question now. So it's a 3-part question. First is, how many international students successfully enroll in the 3-2 engineering program you offer in collaboration with Columbia and Caltech? And the second part is, if the students meet the GPA and course requirements at Bryn Mawr, are they guaranteed admission to the engineering schools? And does financial aid carry over to Columbia and Caltech?
Okay. Actually, good and interesting question. In that, yes, we do have a 3-2 program with Caltech. I don't think Columbia actually. But what I think is actually even almost more important to highlight is that we have a 4-1 program with the University of Pennsylvania. So you do the math, it still adds up to 5 years. And you get, instead of two bachelor's degrees in the 4-1 program, you get a bachelor's and a master's in engineering. And that would come from Penn. And the other advantage is that you get to spend all 4 years at Bryn Mawr, you graduate with your friends, you have that experience, but the overlap is really seamless at Penn.
And it's nearby, it's not like Caltech, which is not like UPenn is very
close. It's on the other coast. I mean, you basically you leave Bryn Mawr and have a totally another different experience, whereas the Penn is very, very different, very different. And
the last part was about financial aid.
Yes, so financial aid, if you apply to Bryn Mawr, you apply for financial aid at Bryn Mawr, and then if you're going on to the Penn program, you need to apply for financial aid for Penn for that final year. Okay,
great. Great, that sounds like a fantastic program. Do many international students avail of that 4+1?
A few. I mean, a few of our students in general, but so yeah, we do have a few.
Right, okay, super, thank you. Okay, so Nicole, I'll let you answer the question about what kind of student would thrive at WNL, but you did tell us a lot, so if you haven't had.
Well, it's the funny thing, I think one of the jokes that we've gotten before about who usually chooses or does really well at Washington and Lee is, sometimes we get that social nerd, nerd in a very positive sense. But I think, we're a pretty social place. I think, students really kind of dive into the community of students that take advantage at Washington and Lee. But it is an academically rigorous place, like Jen talked about, a lot of people are, finding themselves, they're kind of getting their feet, they're kind of diving right on in to the community around WNL. And so I think community kind of says a lot there, but also as an academically rigorous place that, students got to be ready to work. So, I think it's one of those things that it's definitely a balance. We get quite a few students who have some leadership experience from, earlier in their school career. But that doesn't necessarily mean, leadership comes in so many different forms. You could be a researcher, you can be, you can be a leader on an athletic field, you could be a leader in student government, etc. So, I mean, there's lots of options there, but I'd probably definitely say social and smart.
Okay, great. That just is taking me to another question that has come up and a couple of related questions. So I think you mentioned so what is the most popular major? I think I remember Jennifer mentioned that. Did you mention the most popular major at WNL? And also,
I don't think I mentioned the most popular major, but go ahead and finish your question. Sorry.
No, the question is, because this is a very popular major among Indian students, do you offer psychology? Because no one can on your website.
Quick answer to that one is yes. Although the psychology major was actually just recently rebranded last year, and it is now termed cognitive and behavioral sciences. So it actually kind of is more in depth within the sciences, and I think it was throwing a lot of people off because of how oriented it was to the sciences. And so sometimes I think students who were just hoping for psychology were actually thrown off a bit. So I think that's part of the reason why the professors wanted to kind of indicate that, this is a deeper program into the sciences and really prepare students from a scientific standpoint. And I would say that is actually one of our more popular majors on campus. I think, definitely with, an AACSB accredited school of business, I think that anytime you have that at a small liberal arts college, which is so unique, that's going to be very popular. And so we do have lots of students who study business administration, economics, but the biological sciences are very popular. You see a lot of biology and chem students. I think those kind of make up the second biggest portion. And then you kind of get into the psychology students. And we have quite a few students in all different areas. We don't have a specific pre-med or pre-law major, but we have advisors who help students in those areas. So you get like a specific advisor if you're interested in kind of going into those pre-professional type track programs. So if you look at our website, you'll say, well, Nicole lied to me, we don't have this program. And I'll say, well, absolutely we do. You just get a very specific academic advisor regardless of what your major is. And so that helps students be very successful when you're talking about like pre-professional programs.
Okay, thank you. That both of you have told me something I didn't know at all. All right, I want to just address this question about, you know, parents who are, in general, they're very anxious about sending students, their children so far to study, and particularly, you know, maybe in what they perceive as to be a small town, you know, it's not New York City or whatever. And so that's in general the case, and now even more so. So can you just tell us a little bit about the process of, you know, what did your colleges do when the whole pandemic started? How did you get students out? How did you support them? What plan, you know, was there a plan in place? Just some details about how that looked. Jennifer?
Yeah, well, for us, we had to vacate campus. It was actually, the announcement was made during spring break. So that was a little bit odd in that a lot of students were already gone at home, although there were a number of students that had stayed on campus because they didn't want to go home or were afraid if they went home they couldn't come back, you know, specifically our international students. So it was a little bit different on that end. But the dean's office did heroic things to help students get home. Financially, very substantially helped students get home, you know, if they couldn't afford to fly home. We have 150 students still on campus, which is a lot for a school of 1,300.
Yeah.
So a lot of our students still are on campus, and they're being fed and you know, and socially distanced and provided with masks and all of that good stuff. And I guess just a little bit broader view about safety, and we're a women's campus, a women's college campus, and women just think differently about their environment and their safety. And, you know, we know who's on campus and what they're doing there.
Yeah.
You know, and we look out for one another. And, you know, so I think it really is a little bit different at a women's college campus, that we're all looking out for one another in a slightly different way. So I think that's worth mentioning.
Okay, great. What about Washington and Lee, Nicole? We spoke about it a little before the call, but if you want to just talk about.
Yeah, so I think we were probably on the other side of that, actually, from what Jen mentioned. You know, they all were on, you know, spring break. And so, since we actually have a different course structure, we have 2 semesters and then a short, like our students right now are actually in their spring term. So they're doing their 1 course right now, virtually, obviously. So when the time came that students had, you know, when we were making those calls on, you know, what was going to happen with our spring semester, you know, were students going to get sent home? You know, obviously there, you know, was a very concerted effort. And I love Jen's term with the idea of like heroic effort to help students get home, because that absolutely, you know, I'm so much in awe with our, you know, our student affairs and academic affairs professionals to figure out what was necessary, what was important, what was the best interest for the students, because our students were all on campus. They had a earlier winter break, and their spring break was not coming up yet for about 8 weeks. So we were kind of in this weird spot where we're kind of like, okay, do we send students home to potentially dangerous situations? Do we keep them on campus where there's, you know, a chance that they could actually stay well? You know, so we were kind of in this really, you know, different place compared to many other institutions and many of our peer universities where they had spring breaks, and they, you know, they just didn't, you know, want to make sure that they weren't going to have students return to bring everything to campus. And so we were kind of in the opposite situation. But then, you know, once Virginia kind of came into this situation where they were going to have us in shelter at home places, and it was getting into a situation where we wanted to make sure that, you know, with travel restrictions and things that were getting put in place, we wanted to make sure that students were getting home to be taken care of in safe places before those types of things kicked in. And so we worked very diligently with students, you know, like Bryn Mawr. We have a number of students who are still on campus because they were unable to return home. Some are international students, but some are US domestic students who, you know, they, you know, for whichever reason they don't feel safe at home, they ask for a variance and we're given it, and being able to stay on campus. They're social distance, they have masks, they are getting transportation to grocery stores to make sure that they have food. We have a takeout service on campus. I know some of my other international students found temporary homes with friends from campus. And so some of them are in Virginia still, but just not on campus, but at friends' homes. And so there's, you know, also students were able to get refunds from housing, and there were other funding sources that were available from, you know, groups and funds that were available through the Center for International Education on campus to help out students during this time. But we wanted to make sure that all students had a place to go and were safe. So no, I think they did absolutely wonderful. And actually, even before that case, you know, we had students who were coming back from places like Italy, which had huge breakouts beforehand. And the nice thing was our campus is actually pretty well resourced. So we were actually had space available to help students self-quarantine 14 days prior to going back and going into the regular student body. And so we are actually pretty well positioned that way, that we have that space available. And so I think kind of moving forward, thinking about safety on our campus, you know, we have a local hospital nearby. I think actually one of the corporations, they're actually in town, are actually one of the corporations that help like create ventilators. So I think we're pretty well safe on that store as well. But, you know, so we do have resources to help protect students while they're here on campus. And we have, you know, policies in place that we're keeping an eye on what will happen for the fall semester. How are we going to keep students safe? You know, will there, you know, what will breaks look like in the future if we don't want students to go off and come back with viruses, you know? So we're looking through all these different things.
Any plans for the fall finalized yet, or still all under review?
Still under review. I don't think many people have anything set, you know, definitively at this point. It's too difficult, but we're looking through a number of different options, including you know, just whatever it's going to look like, you know.
Right.
I don't think anything is off the table at this moment. We just want to make sure that people are taken care of. And the nice thing is, I think the Virginia governor is, you know, playing things very, very safe when it comes to, you know, our state institutions and everything. So I like that a lot. And so we're kind of playing right into that.
Okay, we have just about, you know, 5 or 6 minutes left. So, but I wanted to make sure that we touch on this question about financial aid, because I do know that, you know, both of your colleges are, you know, do offer, I think I'm correct in saying they both offer need-based financial aid for international students, correct? So will you do you want to talk a little bit about that, what that looks like, and what it might look like next year if that's different?
I can just say that I don't think there's, go ahead, Jen.
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah, so we do offer need-based aid for international students, and we meet full demonstrated need. So I do not see that policy changing. That's been really important for us forever. So I don't see that policy changing. I think for everyone, there may be financial concerns, meaning students, meaning me, meaning, you know, our dining services. We just don't know about that. So I don't see the policy changing. I think our stance will be the same. But
the amount of money may change, I suppose, that's available.
Maybe, I don't know. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think there will be some kind of financial impact. I don't know if it will be financial aid or cutting jobs, you know, or nothing. We don't know.
Right.
We just don't know. I wish I did.
Okay, Nicole, anything to add there?
Yeah, no, just the, kind of similar things there. We meet 100% of need for all students, regardless of their nationality. We actually hold those things very, very important and very serious there. We want to make sure that's affordable for all students. But, like Jen mentioned, there's probably going to be some impacts there. Luckily, so far, everything that I'm hearing is that our institution has been able to weather things pretty easily. And they're making sure that people are secure, but we don't know what's going to be the future of this situation.
Okay. This question about job prospects and how you support international students, I think you both covered it really well in your presentation. So I think I'm going to skip it because we just have a few minutes left. And I'd just like you both to end with a piece of advice for international applicants, because I think what we're feeling on this side of the world and working with, with students and families who were planning, to send their kids and to start their journey of college abroad, are now like, oh my God, they're very stressed. They're very anxious about, can they still do that? How's it going to look different? What should they do? So if you have any advice around that, that would be a great way to sort of end our webinar today. Nicole?
Yeah, I think one of the pieces of advice that I always give to international applicants or applicants in general, and I think it still applies to this time, which is, more importantly, just be yourself, do the best you can. We as admissions professionals are going to be so understanding of what this situation is going to look like for everybody. We know that people's internships are getting cut off. We know that people are not going to be able to go out into communities to do things that they were hoping to do. Let us know about these things. Definitely, do the best that you can, and know that everybody's going to be affected by it. We don't want anybody to be risking their life just to apply to college. Like, that's not what we're all about here. I think that you're gonna have to be a bit more proactive and think outside of that box, but be yourself and do the best you can. I mean, I think that's good advice anytime, not just now.
Thank you. And Jennifer, anything?
I would say my advice is talk to our students, talk to our current students, and they're, whether that's, home in Mumbai or via Skype or any other, we can say wonderful things, and I will say wonderful things, but I think you really want to get a sense from the students what the campus and what the experiences is like. And also by extension for families out there, I mean, we have a pretty good network in India of parents, of alums, of students, and so I think there's somebody for almost everybody to talk to. So that would be my advice.
That's great. Thank you. I agree. That's what I always tell students is, I can tell you what I know, but I'm not you, and I'm not even close in age or interest or anything. So I think you're right. And I feel that it's great for them to know that they can ask you to introduce them to someone else who they can speak to, that you're not sort of determined to control the conversation.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, point. I think unless either of you have anything more to add, I would like to thank you both so much for your time this morning or evening, our time, for sharing the information about your colleges. I think, Namita and I were just saying that we learn so much every time we do this, and I think they're great opportunities, and we it always helps us to start thinking about which students to send your way. And I think there are a lot of other counselors on the webinars, and as well as students and other people who will be in touch with you. So thank you so much, and
thank you.
Have a wonderful day, and stay safe, I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
You all as well.
All right.
Thank you and
so much.
Have a good evening.
Thank you
for rallying us together. Thank you.
Yes. This
Bye.
is what you could do. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.